Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Fuhrman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. Communication can be a tricky thing to navigate, whether it's at work, with friends and family, or even in your romantic life. And in the age of Zoom, social media, COVID-19, and polarizing viewpoints, it's even harder. According to Renée Marino, a former Hollywood and Broadway starlet turned professional communication coach, learning simple communication hacks will facilitate your life, your work, and your relationships. Renée says communication is a secret weapon for getting what you want in any situation. It's not about Jedi mind trickery or manipulation. It's about speaking up, saying what you mean, and most importantly, listening. Renée Marino was named by Yahoo Finance as one of the top 10 communication coaches to follow in 2021. Prior to her coaching career, Renée starred in many Broadway musicals as well as in Clint Eastwood's film version of Jersey Boys. Her website is reneemarino.com, and she joins me this week to share her new book, Becoming a Master Communicator, Balancing New School Technology with Old School Simplicity. Please join me in welcoming to Vox Novus Renée Marino. Welcome, Renée.
Thank you so much. I am so thrilled to be here.
And thank you for joining us. Renée, please share your path before your calling as a master communications coach.
I would love to, Victor. Since I was 5 years old, I was always in love with performing. I started out as a dancer for many years and then got into singing and musical theater. And when it was time for me to pick a college, I knew that I wanted to major in my one true love, which was musical theater. And I did that. I attended Wagner College in Staten Island, New York. And it was some of the most incredible years of my life, really immersing myself in the musical theater world while still getting all of my liberal arts courses. And the day after my college graduation, I was on a plane to Biloxi, Mississippi to star as the lead singer in a casino show out there called, the show was called Heat Wave. And it was one of the most exciting times of my life. I was 21 years old. My picture was on a billboard on the interstate highway. And I was like, I've made it. I did that for about 3.5 months. And then I booked my first national tour, which was the musical Cats. And it was the 25th anniversary tour. And I toured all around North America for over a year. That led to several other shows that I toured with. And then I reached my dream, my childhood dream, to be on Broadway in 2010 with the revival of West Side Story, which was quite a dream come true for me. And from there, I lived in New York City, and I then moved on to the Broadway show called Wonderland, and then another show called Chaplin, and then Jersey Boys, which for me was feeling like I was going back home. That storyline takes place just miles from where I'm from, and I grew up listening to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So to play the role of Frankie Valli's wife, Mary Delgado, was a real dream. And from there, I went on to play that same role of Frankie Valli's wife in Clint Eastwood's film Jersey Boys. So Warner Brothers wanted to do a film version, and it was my first film, Victor. It was just absolutely mind-blowing how incredible the experience was. And after living in California for some years, my husband and I decided we wanted to move back to the East Coast. And then I booked my most recent Broadway show, which was Pretty Woman, the musical, just like the film. And that's when I actually started writing my book, which is now out and available for pre-order, called Becoming a Master Communicator. I began writing it while doing 8 shows a week on Broadway.
Wow.
Yes, I know. I look back now, which is really funny. Before we began this interview, I was starting to read my book because I now have the physical copy. And I have to tell you, it is so trippy to be reading this tangible 250-page manuscript that I created. You know, it's really emotional. And to be honest, I was almost like avoiding sitting down and reading it because I'm sure you, as well as all of your listeners, understand that very tempting voice within you that wants to often tear you down and say like, oh, what'd you do here? Why'd you choose that? So I think there's been a part of me that's been avoiding it. But just like anything in my life, whenever I feel resistance, that means I need to move more towards it. So I laid down on my bed and I opened up the book, and it's so special for me to be reading this beautiful piece of creative art that I have given birth to, which started when I was doing 8 shows a week on Broadway.
That is absolutely wonderful. I have to ask you something, though. What was it like to be directed by Clint Eastwood? Did you make his day?
Oh, my goodness. We could talk a whole interview just about how wonderful that was. He is the most genuine, down-to-earth human being without an ego. And working with him was not just a dream because it's Clint Eastwood, who's, you know, the Oscar-winning director, actor, producer. But I got to know him on such a deep level. He and I would eat lunch together every time I filmed. And for me, I'm a student of life. I feel like in every moment, in every experience, it's just another lesson, right? Another subject. And for me, knowing that I was in the presence of this greatness, I wanted to absorb every single possible learning that I could from him. And that's what I did. Victor, I would sit with him every day and ask him tons of questions. Clint, what was it like when you were growing up? Clint, what was your family like? Clint, when you started acting, why did you choose to do it? Blah, 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 blah. And I learned so much, not just about the world of acting, which when we were on set, again, it was just game-changing advice, but then offset to really sit with him just as a human being was so incredibly beautiful.
What a wonderful experience. And for our listeners who'd like to catch that film of Jersey Boys, where can they see that?
Yes, it is now playing on HBO Max. And it was on Netflix for a long time. To be very honest, I'm not sure if it's still playing on Netflix, but I know it is starting now to make its way to television. So HBO Max, you can check it out. And if nothing else, definitely check out some clips on YouTube. I honestly think one of the greatest aspects of the film, besides the film itself, were the trailers. For me, again, picture a girl who's never done film TV ever before. And I really started out at the top with this major motion picture with just the greatest team on earth, Clint's team. And when that trailer first came out, I will never forget that day. It was like chills ran throughout my body. My husband literally sat on the couch and kept watching it for an hour straight. He just kept replaying it. So yeah, you can check that out on YouTube, but definitely HBO Max.
Wonderful. Now, you had this amazing career in musicals and film, and what inspired you to become a professional communications coach?
Victor, I believe that my purpose in this life is to use all of my God-given gifts to help others see their superpowers and see the light within them. And for myself, besides my dream to perform on Broadway as a little girl, my other passion, my other love was, number one, writing. And before any of it, if we really cut down the layers to the core of what I love doing, it's connecting with people. And as you can see, I chose that through the medium of performing on a stage or through screen when I did the film and TV. But I felt like there was another pull within me to become a coach. And it was something that I always did anyway. I mean, I always taught dance class. I taught several workshops throughout my career, whether it was about helping aspiring performers to audition and how to just be themselves. I was always a coach in one aspect, but I wanted to really dive deep into that. And once I finished Pretty Woman on Broadway and that show closed, I knew that I was ready for a little change in my career. I was ready for a new chapter. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew it had to do with communication. Growing up as an Italian American girl, communication is what solidified my family. You could always find us around the kitchen table, eating, talking, laughing, but nonetheless communicating and connecting. So for me, it was always this obsession with loving to connect with people, being curious about why people communicate in the way they do, what holds people back. And I decided to follow those gut instincts and become a coach. And that's what I did. And ironically enough, it happened. I made this decision before the pandemic, but it just happened that I started taking this course from Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi as the pandemic began. So there I was for 6 weeks, every single day, waking up, doing this course, implementing everything I was learning, and then starting to coach people for free just to learn for myself and really get a feel for this world. And it's been just incredible for the past year and a half.
I remember the lyric from the Rush song Limelight, where he says, communication, the underlying dream.
Yes. Oh, that is beautiful. Yes. Victor, I truly believe this with every fiber of my being. Everything starts with communication. And when we can learn to master this skill, we become limitless. Because I invite you all to think of any aspect of your life that isn't tied to communication. And even if you think at first thought it's not tied to communication, I can assure you, if you go a little bit deeper, it probably is. I mean, think about, obviously, your relationships, first and foremost, personal and professional, are all based on communication and how well you're communicating and how effectively. But think about even your health. Think about if you're not communicating honestly within about where you're going amiss with your eating habits. That has an effect on your health, because then you go to the doctor and they may tell you maybe you not only need to lose some weight, but your blood work is not where it should be. Everything takes this honest communication. And my soul believes that, I can be this vessel to help people understand this very clear truth that everything starts with communication.
Absolutely. Renee, before the pandemic and the need for Zoom and WebEx and other cyber platforms for meetings and communication, I remember attending business meetings where high-placed executives struggled to get their message across. Why is it so difficult for many people to get up in the front of a room and speak?
Because we are so concerned with ourselves. We are so caught up in our heads, as I was describing before, right? That voice that gets to us all, whether it's the inner critic or your inner child or however you identify with it. We are focused on that critic, on that voice that's telling us, oh my gosh, you sound ridiculous. Everyone's looking at that pimple that you have on your nose. Oh my goodness, why'd you wear that suit today? And we forget that the core of what we're doing is to affect other people with our message. And when we start to learn to take the focus off of ourselves and onto those we are looking to serve, all of a sudden, all of that noise quiets a little bit. Doesn't go away, right? I've been professional performer for over 16 years of my life. Those butterflies, that little voice that's sometimes like, oh, how's that performance going to be tonight? It doesn't always totally go away. But when you learn to work with it by communicating within, by being so in tune with yourself that, number one, you're not only aware of when that voice is going to kick up, but you're also aware of your deeper self, your deepest self. That is the quiet, still, confident spirit within. Then you can get to that point where you work with those nerves and you can transform those nerves into excitement. The biggest problem, besides just focusing on ourselves, is that fear factor that creates those physical sensations of what we often say are nerves, whether it manifests as your heart racing or your mouth going dry or you forgetting your words or you going off on tangents. If we can learn to feel those feelings, and instead of labeling them something negative that makes us contract and constrict our breath, label it excitement. Oh my gosh, I get to share my message today. This is so amazing. I can't wait. I'm pumped up. I'm feeling good. All of a sudden now we can use those feelings. It's so funny because really nerves are just energy, and energy is just energy until we attach a label to it. So I say, let's start to train ourselves to attach a positive label to what we're feeling. And the minute we feel those butterflies or our mouth goes dry, instead of the alarm bell going off and being like, oh crap, let it be like, oh yes, oh man, I get to go up today. You know what I'm doing? I am tackling a fear, and that is going to show how courageous I am, because even though my heart's racing, this is the feeling of excitement. And
Absolutely.
if we can really shift that in our brains, everything changes.
I grew up, I'm quite a bit older than you, but I grew up in an era where they used to say children should be seen and not heard. And there was a lot of negative programming, at least in my generation and perhaps a couple of generations after, about the willingness to be able to communicate and not being shut down by parents or family or others. How do we get over that if we have that?
Yeah, that's a real problem, because just like any problem, it begins somewhere. And it's usually when we're young. And that's always tough because we're not always consciously aware of what was happening in those moments. You were just listening and being that good boy that you were told you should be. But what that did is it manifested into your adult life. So what we first need to do is take a step back, take a breath, and take the time to sit with ourselves and identify, where did this begin? Where was the first time that I felt like I couldn't speak? And I encourage everyone to take a pen, a physical pen, and a physical piece of paper and write about it. Writing is such a incredible therapeutic piece of, let's say, it's a skill. It's a therapeutic skill that allows us to pull what's happening in our subconscious mind, which is usually many things that we're not even aware of, pulls those thoughts, feelings, experiences into our conscious mind through our hand and onto the page. And it's like this beautiful mental dump that allows us to physically see in front of us through that paper what's actually going on. And when we can see something, it's a little bit easier to deal with, because then you can identify it. And from there, each day, wake up and make that first communication you have communicating within. Because when we are told to be seen and not heard, what happens also is we kind of turn off that communication within ourselves, because we're just listening to what that exterior voice told us, which was to quiet down, be quiet. So we automatically quiet ourselves too. So we need to reactivate that connection within. So wake up every day and ask yourself this simple question: how am I feeling? And take 5 minutes before you pick up that cell phone and move into the world of other people's lives. Before you speak to anybody else, ask yourself that question and write about it. And even if nothing comes to mind and you just say, I don't know what to write about, that's okay. Keep writing. Because what you're starting to do, Victor, is redevelop that relationship with yourself. And the more you do that each and every day and night before you go to bed, ask the same question, what you start to do is open up your consciousness, and you will begin to see that, oh, you know what? Okay, this was an old story that I actually no longer need to take with me. And this absolutely takes practice. Honestly, hiring a coach is probably the best investment that you can ever offer yourself, because this sometimes takes the outside eye and the outside perspective to help you to really pull this out of yourself. And just every day, stay in communication with yourself, work with a coach who can help you to see these patterns that you've picked up and help you to kind of loosen them up and cut back those layers, to remind yourself that, you know what, I'm an adult now and I get to choose differently.
Has the pandemic caused the move to Zoom, WebEx, and other platforms made it easier or more difficult for people to communicate?
Oof. I believe that is a double-edged sword, if you will. I would not have connected with all of my clients, Victor, if not for Zoom. I mean, my business has been completely virtual because it began virtually, but I've connected with people from Egypt, Ireland, the UK, India, Australia. I mean, all over the world. And it blows my mind. When I teach a course called Connecting on Camera. And this is really to help people to be themselves on video and to be able to bring their real selves when they speak on camera. And it blows my mind every time I do this live workshop because I'm looking at everyone's faces and I could cry because I'm like, we are from all over the world and we are brought together in this moment in time, thanks to this technology. At the same time, we can very easily fall into the pattern of primarily communicating behind the screens of our devices, which can absolutely cause conflict, misunderstandings, and misperceptions. Why? Because as human beings, we are meant to humanly connect. And there is something that can never replace that. If I was in person with you, Victor, it would just elevate this conversation, I believe, 100-fold, because being in one another's presence, that's like the next level up. So because of all of these digital devices that we have that are incredibly convenient and keep us connected at the same time, we use them sometimes as a crutch because I don't need to call you on the phone, Victor. I can just text you. But guess what happens? I'm texting you, you can misread it because there is no tone attached to a text. And before you know it, you haven't talked to your best friend in maybe weeks because you had a disagreement over a text message where a lot of assumption happened and there was no addressing the situation. So the whole reason I wrote my book is because of this exact topic that we're discussing: technology, friend or foe. And I believe that the answer is to learn to balance these two worlds by knowing when's the right time to communicate virtually and when's the right time to put the device aside and say to that friend or colleague or significant other, we need to meet in person. I'll meet you at this place today at 3:00.
To which I say, amen. Her book is called Becoming a Master Communicator, Balancing New School Technology with Old School Simplicity. Renée Marino, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Yes, I would love to. Well, everyone, my book is now available to pre-order, which is so exciting because when you pre-order, you get 2 free, completely free, incredible bonuses. One is called 21 Ways to Use Communication to Increase Business Opportunities. And number 2 is an introspective video journaling tool from the book. So all you have to do is go to becomingamastercommunicator.com and you can pre-order the book there. And I have another surprise for everyone, but maybe, Victor, I should tell them about the ebook later, or I can tell them now.
Tell them now, please.
Okay, well, this week, which is very exciting, my ebook is released. So you can actually get the book digitally, and you can do that for 99 cents. Yes, I said it. And it's a great, I feel like it's a sneak peek of the book before you get the physical copy. So make sure to grab that as well. And if you feel inclined, please write a review. You can get that on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, whichever you prefer, but you can grab that ebook this week for 99 cents. And I would absolutely love to have your review on the book.
And for us old schoolers who love the feel of a book in our hands when we're reading, her book will be available in January, and you can pre-order it right now. And we'll be back with more of Renée after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week, Renée Marino. We're talking about her new book, Becoming a Master Communicator, Balancing New School Technology with Old School Simplicity. Renée, are we in the midst of a post-COVID communication cultural shift?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, as we spoke about just before, we're in a new world, and digital technology is only going to get more advanced, and we're only going to be communicating more often from behind a screen, which as we spoke about is incredible, but can also be dangerous. And we are in this post-COVID space now where many people are going back to physical work, and there's some hesitancy of, okay, well, now I need to reacquaint myself with this physical space. So I think it's a really, really important time for all of us to start to really lean into learning these communication skills to help us connect as effectively and as strong as we deserve to. Because it can be confusing. And I say this in my book, I say this very often to friends and family, but the generations, say, before myself and my mom, who I still have to help very much with texting and even hopping on a Zoom call, I have to guide her in these ways because this isn't natural to her, right? She didn't grow up in this time and space where Zoom was a regular thing every day. So it's important that we all open up our eyes and hearts and minds to really be the change we wish to see, and be patient with those who came before us, who maybe aren't as well versed in this digital world. And when we are in the physical presence of one another, really leaning into that by putting those smartphones away. And when we're connecting physically, really connect physically. Studies have shown, Victor, that even just having a phone out on the table while we're out to eat or out for a cup of coffee proves to lessen the conversation, even if the phone isn't picked up or addressed. And I think this is so interesting and such an important reminder that when we do have that gift of being in person, because let's all face it, we have all been in this time and space where we couldn't touch hands or give each other a hug or sit with each other physically. We know what that feels like. So let's really take full advantage when we are in that physical space to utilize it in the most beautiful ways that we possibly can.
I'm going to date myself in what I'm about to share, but I was in business at a time when there was a thing called a beeper.
Yes.
And for those who don't know what a beeper is, forget about your cell phones and all your other devices for communication. You had this little square box that you would turn on, and if someone were trying to reach you, they would dial a beeper number or call a service, and you would be beeped, which doctors had well before businesses had. And one of the protocols that I used to teach all the salespeople that I worked with when I was in business was that you have to turn the beeper off when you're having an in-meeting person. I don't care if you don't return my call. I don't want that meeting to be interrupted by that beeper. So the cell phone is today's version of the beeper, I guess you would say.
100%. And I did a lot of research for my book, and there was an incredible book that I read called The Distracted Mind. And Adam Gazzaley and Larry D. Rosen wrote this book. And what they talk about is the intriguing part. There are so many intriguing parts about our new school technology, but one of them is the way that we are always expected to be available at any and all times, right? It doesn't matter. Oh, if I'm on this podcast interview, sorry. I mean, someone could still text me or send me a message, through a DM on my social media channels. So it's like this expectancy that if I don't get right back to you, like, what's going on? And then we attach meaning to what that could possibly mean that they didn't answer us back right away. And that's where, again, we can fall into that trap of always being attached to our smartphones, always being attached to our computers. And it's so important for our well-being. It's so critical for us as communicators to turn that off, right? To take that quiet time within, connect with ourselves, connect with family and friends without any digital devices present.
Being involved in sales training up until March of 2020, one of the things that I stressed with the sales teams was that if you have that device on and you're interrupted or distracted by it, you're going to miss something that your customer is saying to you. And if you miss that, you're going to lose that sale. So it's critically important, even at this point, but when we go back to in-person work and in-person meetings, that we turn these devices off.
1000%, Victor. I couldn't agree more. I talk about in the book, I say we've become like Pavlov's dogs who were conditioned to salivate when they heard the bell. Well, we're conditioned to check out of whatever conversation we're in the minute we hear a notification go off on our phone or a notification go off from our email. And that's so tricky, as you said, because then we are missing the information that is being put forth right in front of us.
Absolutely. And one other thing, our son is going to be 30 this month, and I've told him when he comes home for dinner, that phone gets put away. It is not to be held at the dinner table.
Yes. I get it. And I love that. And I really respect you for doing that, because it's addictive. It really is. And all the research that I did, I was just blown away that we are actually addicted to that, that fix, right? That fix of like a text message coming in, or if we're sitting here without anything actively going on for like a few minutes, what do? We reach for our phone. And I'm speaking from experience here. And this is why I can talk about it, because I experience it. Yeah. I mean, how many times, Victor, I'm sure you've gone through this, or any of your listeners, you'll be sitting there, you're writing an email, your phone goes off, you look at the phone, oh, it's a friend, your friend needs advice or needs your attention. You start answering the text message. Next thing you know, 45 minutes go by, you're sitting in front of the computer with a half-written email, and you're completely lost as to like, what was I even supposed to be doing? Yeah. Because our minds are pulled in so many different directions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, we often heard the expression camera shy. In this world of selfies and electronic media, are people still camera shy?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. And this is what many, many of my clients come to me for. I have so many entrepreneurs, business owners, even just business operators who now have to be virtual. And they have to do videos on their landing pages for their business, and they hate it, whether it's for reasons like they just don't like the way they look, or their mind goes blank the minute the camera goes on, whatever the issue may be. I help them to get to that space where they can treat that camera when it goes on just like a conversation. And the truth is, none of us come out of the womb understanding what it's like to be on a camera, and especially to communicate through a camera. So it can be very intimidating, and it can feel very awkward, because let's face it, it is. But when I teach them what I call my 5 power P's of connecting on camera, they get to the point where they realize, okay, firstly, I'm not alone. So many people deal with this fear of getting on camera. Secondly, I have to remember that I'm going to place a person, whether it's my best friend or the person that I'm most comfortable with in my life, I'm going to place their face in that camera lens. So when I speak, I'm just speaking to my best friend. This isn't like, oh my goodness, the spotlight's on me, pressure's on. No. You can ground yourself, sit back, smile, and just talk to your best friend. And these little tactics and very easy to implement tools help my clients to get on camera and be themselves and enjoy doing so.
What are some of the other ways we can turn cyber meetings into more personal, one-on-one experiences?
Great question. The first way is through eye contact. And many people think that when you're on a Zoom meeting or a virtual call, that looking at the screen at everyone's faces is the best way to speak. But really what that does on the other end, it from the other people's view, it looks like your eyes are down. But when you look right into that camera lens, it makes those people on the other end feel like you're speaking right to them. So that's the first way. The second way is to greet everyone when they enter the virtual room, just like you would a physical room. Instead of gut jumping right into business, have that casual conversation. Ask everyone how they're doing. Maybe even take a few minutes to go around to each person and say, how are you? What's new? What's going on? That has nothing to do with work, because then it allows you to connect on a personal level before getting into business. And what that does is breaks the ice, allows everyone else to relax a little bit. And then when you do get into work, everyone can be much more focused. Another way, and I think is the most important way, is to, before you get on that virtual meeting or virtual call, move your body. Move your body, put on your favorite song, dance around, do a couple jumping jacks, get outside in the sunshine. When we are sitting stagnant, whether it's 45 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, all of a sudden we lose that fullness of our energy, which takes away from how well we listen. The people or person on the other end can sense that our energy is drained. So what we want to do is keep our energy high, because Stanford, the Virtual Human Interaction Lab at Stanford just did a study that researched Zoom fatigue, which is a real thing, which shows that we're getting more tired than we would be in physical meetings. So we have to move our body and get our energy up before we have those virtual interactions.
What are some of the other things that people are experiencing in Zoom burnout?
I mean, first and foremost, I have to keep stressing is just that tired, that complete mind-body exhaustion. And the reason why is because of the eye contact that I just shared. Really keeping that eye contact with just that tiny little camera lens can be so tiring. In real life, we don't have to make that full eye contact. Why? Because we can see one another's body language. We can see one another's movement as we're talking. So we don't have to be so locked into their eyes. So that is a biggie, biggie, biggie. Another one is the lack of focus. Why? Because we have these other distractions, i.e., 12 tabs open on the computer as a meeting is going on, our cell phones on our lap where we can peek at and, kind of clue into who's trying to reach out to us. That takes away our focus. And then what happens, as you touched upon before, Victor, then we're not listening. So we miss a couple things, excuse me, and then we're having to go back and remind ourselves, what was just touched upon in that meeting? I kind of forgot. And this causes problems because then we're not tuned in, tapped in to what that meeting was about.
And people leaving their mics unmuted with kids and pets and other distractions in the background.
Yes.
Are there some other do's and don'ts of virtual etiquette?
Absolutely. One of them, as you just said, is being aware of your surroundings. You want to be in the most quiet possible space that you can. And I understand it's tough for some of us if we're in small apartments or spaces where other people are close by. Do your best. It could be honestly setting up a space in the bathroom, wherever you can find a quiet spot to not be distracted for yourself, but also for the listeners on the other side who can hear the comings and goings of people in and out of the room, other conversations, TVs being on. The other very important factor to consider is your background. What is the background that others are seeing when you're on Zoom? I can assure you that if it's an interesting background and there's a lot going on, they are not paying attention to you or what you have to say. And we want to do everything we can to be distractible proof. So what that means is have a background that is as simple as possible. The minute we put a picture up there or an interesting painting, guess what happens? We go, oh, wonder what that picture is. Wonder who that is. I wonder if that's Renee's husband, and then we lost them. And the same holds true for what we're wearing. Most important is we want to feel good in what we're wearing, but we also want to think about it like we would if we're attending an in-person meeting. Would you wear sweatpants and pajamas? I don't think so. So although it's tempting to be in your house and be really super comfortable, in your mind, you must treat this like a very professional meeting. And that doesn't mean dressing in a suit or a tux or a ball gown, but you want to feel your professional best that makes you feel most yourself, but is still professional and presentable. And with that, also wear something that, again, like your background, is simple. Not logos, not tons of patterns, because again, what that does is really distracts the person or people on the other end. So be really conscious of that.
Do you like blur on Zoom?
I personally do not, but if that's only one of two options you have, and the other option is to be in a really busy background, I say you can do the blur, but I do not prefer that. I also don't prefer, I'm sorry to say, I know a lot of people will be disappointed, but the virtual backgrounds. And why do I say that? Because most of the virtual backgrounds are beautiful and so interesting to look at, that when I'm staring at someone who has a virtual background, I'm looking at the beach that is behind their head, or I'm looking at that really interesting office space and wondering what those books are on the shelves. So again, we want to remind ourselves, we want to make it as simple and clear as possible, because nowadays with technology, we are all much more distracted. So let's do everything we can to be distractible proof.
So throw up a neutral screen behind us.
Absolutely. I think that is the best way to go. Or for myself, I happen to have a wall in my house that is just really plain. There's nothing on it. And that's where I go. And it's really helpful, everyone, to have your space set beforehand, right? Don't be running around. Where am I going to go? On my couch, on my bed? No. Pre-plan a spot in your home that maybe you can already have your ring light. You can have your desk, your microphone's there. So that way, when you have a meeting, you don't have to think about it. You boom, go right to that space. Too often I see people in meetings, they're like moving around. And if they're moving around, we're getting dizzy and they're not able to properly listen, and we're not able to properly listen.
Absolutely. My guest, Renée Marino, her book, Becoming a Master Communicator, Balancing New School Technology with Old School Simplicity. We'll be back with more of Renée after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Renée Marino. Her book is called Becoming a Master Communicator, Balancing New School Technology with Old School Simplicity. Renée, you share there are 5 signs that a person is communication phobic. What are those signs?
Communication phobic. One of my favorite phrases. A client of mine said it to me and the light bulb just went off, because she talked about how she grew up in a family who didn't ever talk about feelings or anything beyond surface level things. So number one, communication phobic, if you are a communication phobic individual, if you don't talk about feelings, you shy away from anything, talking about anything beyond how's your day, what's going on. The minute it gets deep, you kind of leave the scene. Number two is you tend to avoid. You just avoid any sort of conversation that has to do with those feelings or has to do with maybe an issue arising in a relationship of yours. You know that you're communication phobic if you would rather deal with regret than you would be having to talk about, any sort of feelings or emotion at all. You're also communication phobic if you tend to change the subject when someone talks about, any sort of feelings or connections. You change a subject. And also, if you are someone who believes that communication means confrontation, I hear this a lot, and I always have to correct the person who says to me, Renee, no, I don't even want to address this situation because I'm not a confrontational person. And I always have to remind them that communication does not mean confrontation. They are not one and the same. Can communication become confrontational? Absolutely. But they're not one and the same. And when we don't have that conversation, or we don't address an important topic or an important conversation with someone, we are really missing out on an opportunity by believing that it means that it's going to become confrontational.
Absolutely. I've heard it from reliable sources that you are a hacker, that you have communication hacks for virtually every aspect of life, personal and professional. Let's start with personal. What are some of the hacks for family and friends?
Yes. Well, I have a quote that I created, and it's basically, anything that's brushed under the rug never stays there for long. It always ends up back out on your sparkling clean hardwood floors, right? And how often have you, when it comes to family or friends, you keep brushing things under the rug? Your mom says something to you that bothers you, but you just keep brushing it under the rug. Or your brother or your sister or your friend, and you just keep letting it impact and pile on top of one another. And then one day you have the outburst. I want you all to get to the point where you say, if something is bothering me and it's been done repeatedly, it doesn't always have to be the first time, but say your mother or your father or a friend says something that keeps offending you, and you keep telling yourself, oh, it's fine, I'm just going to brush it under the rug. I want you to flip the script in your head and say, you know what? I know that there's a part of me that's trying to, quote unquote, keep the peace. But if I really want to keep the peace, I must address this now, because if I let it keep going, it's going to turn into a bigger problem, and we don't need that. So it's like they say, who is they, but deal with the monster when it's small, right? Yeah. Deal with it when it's still in the infant baby stage before it grows into that full-blown adult, and then things become harder.
Absolutely. What about hacks for romantic encounters? Is cyber intimacy possible?
I believe it is, if you treat it as what you would treat the situation if it were a physical situation. Again, and you and I actually just spoke about this on the break, but if your intention is pure and from the heart, and you are communicating virtually, that intention can be felt, right? But if you are treating, say, a dating website, and you're meeting for the first time virtually, if you're treating that with a mask on, meaning you're being a person that you think someone wants you to be, or you are putting on a facade in one way, shape, or form. Even if it's putting a filter on a photo, that is being inauthentic, and that will lead to inauthentic relationships. So the answer is yes, you can have a real connection virtually, but you must come at a place that is completely authentic and genuine.
What about hacks for businesses and their clients?
Simon Sinek has a quote that is one of my favorite, and it is, "We don't do business with companies, we do business with people." So when you are in that business atmosphere, whether you're a leader or you are a part of a company, remember that you are working with people. Treat them like so. Ask them how they're doing. When it comes to a client, before jumping in to tell them what you do, what you offer, listen. Listen to what their needs are. Listen to where they come from, and maybe you have some commonality. As human beings, we love when we have something in common with another person. And sometimes we miss out on that opportunity to connect on that level because we're not listening. So remember that we do business with people, not companies, and treat people like individuals and listen to what they have to say.
I used to teach that in sales techniques, in interrelationships in companies, that they have to take ownership, number one, of customer satisfaction and ownership of each other. And I said, if you take the letters W and R out of ownership, you end up with one ship, which is the one ship that we either sail together on or we sink together on.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's we, right? A team is a we.
There's
And
no I in team. That's what we say.
Absolutely not. And even, let me tell you, being an entrepreneur myself, for the first time, a solo entrepreneur, I still don't look at it like it's just me, because it's not. Like, even with my clients, yes, I'm coaching them, but we are doing this together. And I can only be a great coach by listening to what they need. If I hopped on a call and just went right into, this is what you need, this is what you need to do, you should, no. It has to be a collaborative effort. We have to work together.
Absolutely. In a world where many strive for perfection, you say there is power in imperfection. Please explain.
Yes. Imperfect action is the antidote to perfectionism. And I know this because I've lived most of my life as a perfectionist, and I understand the mental torture that it can bring you when you believe that you can only take action when everything is what you perceive as perfect. The conditions are right. You look in the best way you want to look. Everything is right and just so. How often does that happen? Hardly ever. And the way to battle that, because what that does is keeps us often stuck in a loop of procrastination. Because if it's not perfect, we're not going to do it. And then what happens? Days go by, weeks, years, decades sometimes, and we still haven't done that thing that we know we want or need to do. So imperfect action is the ability to take the action even in spite of being fearful, even when things aren't perfect, even when you wish your hair was a different style and you need to go on video. Still take that action, because the truth is, Victor, courage isn't courage unless there is fear present. So if we want to live our lives to the highest capacity that we possibly can, we must step outside of our comfort zone. And that means that we are going to be faced with the nerves and fear and the doubt. But if we can train ourselves to take that action, even when we're afraid, I'm telling you, we are going to skyrocket to the next level of our lives, because then we can look back and say, oh my goodness, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but look how much I've gotten done. For me, I have been doing this for the past year and a half as a coach, as a writer, as an author, first time published author. Everything that I've done in this past year and a half is incredibly new and my first time. And I was able to do it because I did it imperfectly, even the days that I was afraid, even the days when I felt doubt. And now I can look back and go, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how far I've come.
You meet someone in an elevator and they say, tell me about your book, Becoming a Master Communicator in 60 Seconds.
Becoming a Master Communicator is a beautiful guidebook for you to live the life that you truly want, for you to establish that true self-confidence, fulfilling relationships, and an extraordinary career because you understand how to master your communication skills. And you get to do it with easy and practical tools that you can utilize each and every day in your life.
The wisdom and experience of Renée Marino, her book, Becoming a Master Communicator, Balancing New School Technology with Old School Simplicity. Renée, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Yes, please, everyone, reach out to me on Instagram at I am Renée Marino and pre-order my book at becomingamastercommunicator.com. becomingamastercommunicator.com. And remember, this week, you can also get the 99-cent ebook either on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
And just share what services you offer on your website.
Yes, absolutely. I offer a live 2-day workshop called Connecting on Camera, which helps you to get on camera and be yourself and be confident in that person. And I also offer one-on-one coaching packages. We have a 1-month, 3-month, and 6-month coaching package.
Renée, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this very important book and message that's so critical at this time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.